Over the years, I've seen many entrepreneurs struggle with coming up with a name for a new business. I've seen them scour websites, trying to get inspired. I've seen them look at books, look at dictionaries, just look at everything they could to find some inspiration for a name for their new business. But where there really is a method to the madness. And in this video, I'm going to tell you steps that you can use to determine a name for your new business. And that, my friends, is up next. Hi, welcome to Over 50 TV. If you're new to our channel and you want business and career advice to people over 50, then subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to click that little bell so that you'll get the latest updates and you won't miss anything. Hi, welcome back to Over 50 TV. My name is Lou Reyes, I'm your host. And at the top of the show, I told you that I wanted to help you and give you a method to determine a name for your new business. And actually, there's 7 steps that I take and I've seen other people take. The first step that they do, the one thing that they look at is coming up with a name that incorporates the main benefit or multiple benefits in their business. And I'm going to give you some examples of companies that have used a name that gives you the main benefit. And here's 3. First one, Die Hard Battery. Now, obviously, that's going to tell you exactly what that battery does. It tells you what their product is, and it gives you a promise that says this battery is going to go and it's going to die hard. Here's another name, Lean Cuisine. Now, if anything describes a business or a product more, I don't know what that would be, what that name would be. Lean Cuisine totally describes what that product is, and it's giving you the main benefit. Here's another one, 5-Hour Energy. And we've all heard that. We've seen the commercials. We've probably seen the print ads that are 5-Hour Energy. So those are 3 names that incorporate the main benefit or benefits of their product. Now, another thing that people do when they're trying to come up with a name for their new business is they promise to solve a common problem, something that we all face. And I'm going to give you examples of names that are solving those problems. And I'm going to give you 4 examples here. Fat burner. Now, how much more can a name describe what that product is about or what that company is about? Fat burner. Here's a couple more. Economy door. Budget car rental, dollar saver. Those names, those 4 names, each describe or give a promise that solves a problem. Now, another way that people come up with a name for their company, or maybe even for their product, is that what they do? They come up with a common name. They just go in the dictionary and they just look for a common name. And I'm going to give you some examples of it. Amazon, Apple, Yelp, and Yahoo. Those are fairly common names, and people use those. They come up with a name that maybe just strikes their fancy, a name that just hits them, and they say, yeah, I'm going to use that name. But here's the challenge. When you use a common name, what happens is you're going to have to spend a lot more money to market your company. It's not as easy for people to, they look at the word Amazon. It's not as easy for them to say, well, I know what that is. Yeah, now today we do. After decades, basically decades of a company using the name Amazon and marketing the heck out of it. Apple, the same thing. I mean, decades of marketing the name Apple. You attach and you understand that when you hear the word Apple, it's a company, and you know what that company is about. Same thing with Yelp and Yahoo. But I'm going to tell you, it is more challenging when you use a common name because it's more costly. Now, here's another method that people use to come up with a name for their business is they'll go ahead and they'll invent a word. And I'm going to give you some examples of this. I mean, names that you've heard: Facebook, YouTube, and many of you have heard of Shopify, the online retail site or platform. But they came up with these names. They invented these names. They invented a word to describe their company. When you look at YouTube or you look at Facebook, or like I said, you look at Shopify, yeah, now you know what they are. But you know what? Here's the problem. And it's the problem as I previously discussed. You have to spend a lot of money. You invest a lot of marketing money to build that brand, to build that name, to build the association. So I don't recommend inventing a word, but if you decide to invent a word, understand you are going to have to come up with a lot more money to market that name or market your new business. Now here's another method that people use to come up with a name for their new business, and it's called Mashup. What they do is they'll take a couple words that are uncommon and they just try to link them together. They fuse them together to come up with a name for their business. And I'm going to give you some examples here. I'm going to give you actually 3 examples. I'm going to give you Microsoft. Now we've all heard of Microsoft, right? What they did is they came up with microcomputer and software, and they merged those names together. They mashed them together to come up with that name. Another one would be FedEx. They used the word federal and express and formed those 2 words, took those 2 words and they combined them, they fused them together, they mashed them together, and they came up with FedEx. Now the thing I like about FedEx is when I first heard that name, and I can remember way back when I was thinking about it, for some reason I always thought it was part of the federal government. You know, I just got that impression, right or wrong, and obviously I was wrong. But when you hear the name Federal Express, you do think more along the lines of it's a government distribution company. At least that's what I thought, a delivery service. Now here's another name that is a mashup, Band-Aid. It's a pretty cool name. We've all heard that name, right? Bandage and aid. Those 2 words were combined to come up with the name for the company, Band-Aid. So those are 3 things or 3 examples of mashup. Now here's another method that a lot of people use, and I really like this one. I mean, for whatever reason, it's probably my personal favorite, and it's called rhyme. Some people call it alliteration. You know, when I speak, a lot of times I use 3 examples of anything. But, you know, rhyme, you know, something that rhymes or has alliteration to it. I'm going to give you some examples of names that rhyme, and you can go online actually, and there's sites that you can go to, platforms that you can go to that will help you to come up with a name that will rhyme. You type in your names. Here's a name for you that rhymes: Dunkin' Donuts, Krispy Kreme Donuts, Piggly Wiggly, Vines and Wines, or Chuck E. Cheese. Those names just they kind of roll off your tongue, and they kind of have a rhythm to it, a rhyme to them. So yeah, Dunkin' Donuts, I mean, when I hear that, of course I know what it is, but they use DD. So that's sort of an alliteration. Same with Krispy Kreme. They used a K, crispy and cream, but that's an alliteration. Piggly Wiggly, that's a rhyme if I've ever heard it, and it's a cute name. So you're gonna remember that, I know. Vines and Wines and Chuck E. Cheese, all names that have some rhythm to it, that have some rhyme to it, that have a little bit of alliteration. But that's also a technique or a method that people use to come up with a name for their business. Now here's another method. This is another way that people come up with a name for their new business, and it's really pretty simple. They use their own name. They use their own name to market their company, to market their new business. Now, if you're a famous Hollywood star or an athlete and you use your name for a product, you know what? You have instant name recognition. People are going to know you and know that, and they're going to associate you with whatever the product or service is, because immediately when they see your name, they're going to look at it because they're curious. But what if you're not a famous athlete? What if you're not a Hollywood star and you're going to use your name to start a business? Well, you're going to have that same problem which I described earlier, which is you're going to have to invest a lot of money to market your name. But here's some other issues that I have and I've seen with people who use their name for their business. Now they're associated with the business. You know, I've heard of a plumber who used his name in his business. And when people wanted to use this plumbing service, they'd call and they'd expect him to answer the phone or him to come out and service their plumbing problem. But when he hired more people to do the work, now he wasn't coming out anymore. So that was a little bit of an issue for him. Now here's another problem you have when you use your name for a business. Say down the road, you want to sell your business. Down the road, you're looking at it and you're going, you know what? It's time to sell. I've got a nice business here. I want to sell it. Well, sometimes people who are buying your company, they don't want to use a name. They want a more common name. And if you have a lot of employees in your business, you know, that name that's associated with your business isn't a name that maybe somebody's going to want to use. So when you come up and use your name, understand that the focus is on you. The focus isn't on anyone else. So to me, when I use a name, when I hear somebody says, I want to use a name, it's okay if you want to build a smaller business and if you want to just, you don't plan on selling it later on or down the road. But you know, using your own name does work, so please don't misunderstand me. A lot of people want to brand themselves, and especially if they want a consulting service or something like that. But here's some names that do work and have worked over time and proven to work. Charles Schwab, Hilton, Marriott, and McDonald's. You know, those are names that people use to name their business. They named them after themselves. And you know, the McDonald brothers, when they started McDonald's, they ended up selling it to Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc kept the name McDonald's. I mean, obviously he built the franchise, or helped build, and was instrumental in building a giant behemoth of a company. But McDonald's was just a name that people were comfortable with. You know, the others I mentioned too, you know, they've been around a long time. So yeah, you know the name. But when you're just starting out, when you're just starting a business, it's very difficult or challenging to use a name to build your business. And again, I go back to the fact if you want to sell it down the road, you know, that may be more of a challenge as well. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to tell you some things to avoid in a name when you're using or coming up with a name for your business. And one thing I don't like to use, and I don't recommend it because it's just so hard for name recognition, is don't use acronyms. Acronyms are very difficult for people to remember, for your customer to remember. There's no way they can associate your name or the acronym name with anything else. So I don't recommend using acronyms. IBM uses it now, but for a long time they were known as International Business Machines. So that really did work, obviously. But here's another thing that I want to recommend that you should avoid. Keep it short. You know, don't come up with a long name. You know, some people will use a long name. They just, for whatever reason, I don't think that they're really thinking how easy it is to remember. Because when you're coming up with a name, you want it to kind of roll off people's tongue. You want them to just be able to look at it at a glance and know that it's you. You want to be associated. You're building a brand, remember that. So keep it short. 1 or 2 words is what I recommend. If you go any more than that, usually it is definitely getting a little bit too long. Don't use a name that will restrict your growth if you want to expand your business later on. So, you know, I kind of go back to using your own personal name. I mean, if you want to do that, and if you feel you want to build your brand, if you're a star athlete or you're a Hollywood star, yeah, go ahead and do it. I mean, hey, I would do it. You already you have instant name recognition. But it's just that if you don't have that instant name recognition, it is more costly to use that name for your startup business. Well, I've just given you 7 tips, 7 methods, 7 ways that you can come up with a name for your business. I like looking at something that rhymes, and I like also is incorporating the name of the benefit that you offer in the name of your business. You know, over 50 TV. I mean, to me, that does tell you what we're about. You know, it's over 50 for people who are over 50. And you know what, we use a tagline. You know, business and career advice for people who are over 50. So we have our name and we have a tagline which describes further our name. That's something that you can do, and it's a method or a technique that you can use as well. So if you've heard anything that you liked in this program, and I think you probably heard a lot, especially if you're looking to start a new business and you're trying to come up with a name, but if you've heard anything you like, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And also, there is a little bell down there. And if you click on that little bell, you'll get the latest updates, the latest videos that we produce. Have a great day, everybody, and I look forward to meeting you and talking to you again soon.